Hello, and welcome to another MarketMuse content strategy webinar in our series. And I'm so excited about today's topic. It's financial services SEO. And we're going to do a deep dive into effective content strategies that focus on expertise, focus on authority, focus on building trust in a really, really tough competitive zone. And I've got an amazing guest, which I'll tease a little bit on, but he knows this game. He's been in it as a practitioner as well as a consultant. So he knows every end of building a great content strategy that has longevity. And that's the key in financial services, as we'll get into. So I'm really excited to talk to him. Before I intro him specifically, ask us anything during the show. So we are not going to be doing an AMA in the Slack channel. We're going to get as many questions answered as possible. So in our new On24 Elite Studio, which is so awesome for webinars, by the way, ask them in the box. We will get to them in line if they're relevant, or at the end in a separate Q&A section, and we'll get through as many as we possibly can. If by some chance we don't get to something, we'll answer it via email. And those usually end up as really long, funny threads. So, hey, it's actually kind of lucky if yours gets docked to the bottom and we end up sending it around in an email. Third thing I'll mention is, please, you're going to get this recording in the next couple of days. Go to our archive. We've got over 50 content strategy webinars. We have people that are like writing out books documenting the content in these webinar series. It's really amazing. We got Andy Crestadina, Kevin Indig, Adam Steele, Pam Didner on sales enablement, really every kind of topic that relates to content strategy. We probably have a webinar. And this year's series of guests started already with a huge bang, and we're just getting better. So I'm really, really excited about this, especially with the On24 series. All right, without further ado, he is the lead SEO consultant for GB Digital, a longtime friend of mine, and I'm so excited to have you today, Garit Boothe. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got here, what types of things you've done, what you focus on, and like what's your top thing that you're thinking about right now in content?
Totally. Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff. I've been a MarketMuse power user for years now, love using it. And I got my start in digital marketing, actually a small e-commerce company here in Utah where I'm based. And I had a really successful experience migrating, with 301 redirects and everything, an offsite blog onto our on-site e-commerce shop site. And that I pulled it off very, very successfully. It was my first experience with SEO. We made a ton of money, and I was like, oh my gosh, this SEO stuff is cool. And so I've always had a very content-centric approach to getting content out there, ranking on Google. And so later on in my career, I was able to work for a pretty big agency called ClearLink. I call them a mega agency because they're like billion-dollar agency, thousands of employees. They both have enterprise clients such as Verizon and AT&T, where I was able to work on them, on those accounts. And then also in more recent years, we're able to launch and own their own web properties. So I was actually tapped to help get business.org off the ground. And that was a really interesting project. And we started to go quite heavily into business loans, finance content. And I've always been a guy who's read finance books. I studied economics in college. So I'm like, this finance stuff is cool. And then from there, I jumped on to a B2B finance company called Nav. And now I run my own shop. But it's really interesting because, finance is a very important topic for anyone's life. It's a your money or your life topic. And what I'm thinking a lot these days with regards to content is topical authority. How do you establish it in Google's eyes? How do you flush it out? And in fact, I was just talking with a European firm has a pretty big presence in the English language space, finance space, and they were touched by the algorithm update just last December. And I started to think about it. If you look at the Google algorithm updates over the past probably 4 years at least, almost every one, maybe not every single one, but almost every one has had to do with how Google understands the content on your website. Are you using, they're trying to, figure out NLP, natural language processing. How good is the content in human terms? And You've got to have a process for that. And if you're not on topic, especially in finance, you're going to get hit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is something that I want to get into a deep dive on. That is something we saw. We've done extensive research in the December and many of the earlier updates, but in December specifically on sites that had, I mean, this is a really deep dive. We'll probably get into it a little bit later, but sites that had not made up their mind on intent and not written content that was comprehensive on the various topics that they were focused on, maybe even emulating some very powerful entities, emulating sites that maybe they shouldn't have. And that's a tremendous mistake in financial services, to do that in a way that isn't very explicit and shows that you know them. Show them you know them, right? You know the customer, you know the buyer journey. So, but we'll get into that in a little bit later. But that's an exciting topic today for sure. So you mentioned that you've worked on, you've done it all. You've worked on specifically like large enterprise, kind of middle market. You worked with kind of a B2B entity, and now you're consulting. What are you focused specifically on the financial services industry for your client pool right now?
Yep. All my clients are, well, I should say I have a couple of tech clients that aren't finance, but primarily focused on finance, fintech. I'm doing audits for finance bloggers. I have recurring clients in the fintech space, and I live and breathe this stuff.
Oh, that's so cool. And by the way, Augustine Marin, you just asked a question that we are going to get to because that is an awesome question. And it touches on rich media optimization and those types of strategies. So we will catch on that towards the end. So thanks for asking that. Okay, so let's start with a question about financial services that really gets into why it's different. Not just for which we'll talk about QRG, Quality Raters Guidelines, or Your Money or Your Life, but what types of content typically exist when you're analyzing a financial services company that might not exist somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually wrote about this recently, and I was just looking at, I put together this huge list of keyword patterns that you typically see in finance that you don't see in other places. So you see a lot of, so for one, you see a lot of keyword patterns around price, gold price, rates, quotes, all that kind of stuff. And so that's a very, you look at the search intent of that, that's fast. People are looking for up-to-date answers. So if you can serve content that's up to date, and there's a lot of automated solutions going on there. You look at Bankrate. Bankrate.com has a lot of great examples here. That's one area that just has endless search volume. And surprisingly, a lot of websites aren't doing it really well. So that's an opportunity. Another one has to do with, there's a lot of forms, templates, and applications. For example, in taxes, Form 1040 Schedule A. You know, you've got in loans, promissory note template, loan application 103, free blank profit and loss statement. People literally will look up PDF, Excel template, stuff like that. Again, if you can give, content strategy, right, give them what they're looking for, you'll win the traffic and maybe even get them on your email list.
No, I love that. And I actually have a funny story that I'll tell about temporal content or price content. In how, some of these financial services companies have managed it well and how not to. And that'll be like a really great example. So I love that example. I think that there's another one that we talk about with rich media, which was a great question that's already come in. And I think we had another question. Yes, this will be shared, this recording. So Vin, thanks for the question. So we'll get into other content types. And, books, ebooks, PDFs, Excel, templates, those are really key in financial services and other Your Money or Your Life zones. But let's getting ahead of ourselves on what that is. From how does the information gleaned from the Quality Raters Guidelines? And if anyone who's listening to this doesn't know what the Google Quality Raters Guidelines is, put a note, Quality Rater Guidelines, Google PDF, and go download it and put it next to your bed at night and read it till you're done. But how does that really influence one's strategy in financial services, and how do you take into account the concepts that relate to Your Money or Your Life when you're giving advice, or whether you're internally or for a client? So
totally. So I actually have a quote here from the Quality Rater Guidelines, and I'm going to quote it for you because I do recommend, like Jeff says, to read it yourself. but it may be something you do before you go to bed at night because it's not a page turner.
It'll put you right pages too, I think, right? 240.
So they say for all other pages that have a beneficial purpose, the amount of expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness is very important. EAT. And so they explain the expertise of the creator of the main content, of the authoritativeness of the creator of the content itself and the website, and of course the trustworthiness of the website and itself. So when you look at those different aspects, who's writing the content? You need to have your author on there. They need to be somebody who preferably knows what they're talking about, at least somebody who has an experience writing for this. And then with regards to your website itself, and this is something you and I were just chatting about earlier, Jeff, be a real company. Show that you're a real company. So I've talked with like post-Series A fintech companies. They have people who come in with 9-to-5 jobs in an office, and they're not putting their address on their website. Yep. So, and maybe there's some privacy concerns there, whatever, but I'm willing to guess, okay, that if you're not a Jordan Belfort-like character and you're not ripping people off, you're probably not getting too many angry customers, and it's okay to put your real address on your website. So put the name of your company, NAP, name of your company, address, and phone number in your footer, on your About Us page, maybe your Contact Us page too, and mark it up with the appropriate schema markup. And bonus, even if you're not a local company, grab your Google My Business profile, and that'll enhance your presence and establish your trustworthiness, both from an algorithmic and human standpoint.
Yeah, there's just no value if you're in this zone or similar zones in writing content from admin, in writing content from XYZ staff. I mean, and not having it tagged to a human or to a human persona that you can legitimize, and you can actually build attributions that this person, whether they're medically vouched for, or if you're in medical, or financially vouched for, you have a pool of other things you've published on other reputable places and yours. You've got to really focus on that, on the expertise part of this. We've seen sites get slam dunked because they didn't have any authorship. I mean, and this is like over 10 years ago. I mean, gosh, I don't even know what year it was. I have to check my brain on here. But Google took a big step forward, and this is totally a tangent. They took a big step forward towards authorship, where you actually could get your face in the SERP.
I remember those days. Mm-hmm.
Some newer SEOs might not remember that. And they pulled back on that. They were like, yo, that's not the right solution for this. And they completely backed off. But behind the scenes, there's a lot happening on us understanding how expertise is associated and attributable. So a big thing that people don't know, and hey, this is worth the price of admission. I'm going to be writing a post and doing a video on this in the future, but is trustworthiness, authoritativeness is associated with not just the site, but site sections. And those can be subdirectories, those can be subdomains, but it's site sections. And why is that? It's because you may have a section of your site that represents your authority on a topic, like maybe the Johns Hopkins main site is an expert on medical topics, but their careers site isn't, right? The careers site isn't the place that's telling them that you're an expert on that particular condition, right? So they actually are evaluating this on a section level, subsection level, subdomain. So just be thinking about that. If you have a writer that doesn't write, but on one section, that's a different authoritativeness profile. And this is explicitly how Google works on this particular topic, right? And so getting into the nuts and bolts of how your authors are represented throughout the site is key. I love that you brought that up. So tell us a little bit about what makes a your money or your life site from this.
So I'd say being designated in the your money or your life category includes the industries of finance, legal, and medicine easily. So we're talking finance here. And, you've touched on a lot of great things, using reputable authors, showing that to Google. They need a profile image. They need a bio that maybe showcases a little bit of their resume and why they're qualified. And it's really easy for Google to take that author image and cross-reference it across the internet to see the other websites that they've written on. Is this the same person that's written on Barron's and Kiplinger and, you know, CNN Money or wherever? It doesn't have to be that, you know, that's vaulted, but that's a really easy thing for the new Google Knowledge Graph to pull. So like you're saying, use good writers, especially because we're a your money or your life topic. And, you know, I don't think we ever quite know the extent that the Google algorithm is able to, how deep they're able to go. But we do know that it seems like every quarter there's a major core algorithm update, and they're constantly implementing more and more of these factors. So I think from a user human standpoint, of course you want great content. And then in terms of what the Google algorithm can see, showcase as many of those things as you can. And it's really interesting how so many websites, to your point, Jeff, don't have an author, or like you said, it's like admin or staff or whatever. Or if they do have an author, it's somebody who hasn't really fleshed out their profile. Those two things helps a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think we did a webinar with Jason Bernard a couple times ago on your brand and your personal brand, and how that influences like the explicit exact match for your personal brand or the brand that you're representing or your name, right? If that's not up to base, if that's not up to par, you've got to get there fast with your brand, fast with you as an individual, so that this will work. And that goes, again, for everybody. And this can be all of your social media profiles that are public, your LinkedIn. It can be all the stuff that you have attribution for in terms of the way that Jason Bernard talks about it, which is your brand SERP, right? And so, like, this is the type of thing that you need to be thinking about with regard to the authorship representation on your site. Like, you know, Gary, you mentioned staff doesn't work. I mean, it's just over time, there's something bad's going to happen over time, because there's just, why would I take advice for my health, for my money, from a random, you know, black box staff person that randomly works for your company? You know, where you have people that work for your company that maybe aren't experts. How are we supposed to know that? That's not really defensible. It's not a long-term approach. And I see it. I'm actually, your point about the not having the authorship and represented and addresses, you know, you're probably seeing that on entities that are like only online. Or have you ever seen that on brick and mortars? Or have you ever seen that only online? Because I see that with a lot of people who have affiliate sites where they're afraid of putting it out there, and then they're getting hit and they're wondering why. It's because they're not as legitimate writing bucket content. They're writing content that covers multiple intents, and they don't realize that smashing them together on one page can actually hurt you. You know, so they're using, you know, things like TF-IDF only to optimize content, other, you know, tremendously low quality topic modeling and that kind of thing. But yeah, how do you ever see that with companies that actually have real brands?
So unbelievably, yes. So like you said, this is a huge problem for affiliate websites. And I'm using affiliate in the broadest possible sense. I perhaps would even think of NerdWallet as an affiliate site, because they primarily monetize through their affiliate links and relationships, even though they're this huge brand. So I mean, so it's a big problem for affiliate, because, you know, if we go back 10 years ago, even 5, you know, you see all these people creating websites to rank for, you know, best, for example, you know, best online insurance companies, best this, best that, or, you know, one brand versus another, or they do brand reviews. Well, what's really interesting is I actually saw a really interesting analysis by Matt Diggity, who's a big, you know, affiliate guy, on the Google algorithm core update. So this last one that we had. And it seemed that affiliate sites got hit particularly hard. And what their analysis takeaway was that these sites had too much low funnel content because they weren't fleshing out their full topical authority. And one of the things that he says is always get your name, address, and phone number. And I like that he says that, because I've always said that to all my clients. And it's like, you know, even if you don't have a brick and mortar, or if you're a real company but you're distributed, right? Or SaaS companies. A lot of times, even I've seen SaaS companies do the same thing. Get that name, address, and phone number, look real, mark it up with schema markup, do citations, real business directory links, get some citations with your name, address, and phone number, because the Google entity it's establishing your authority within the Google knowledge graph. And for humans too. I mean, show people that you're a real business, have human faces, not just on your author bios, have an about page that has company faces. And I know this seems super basic, but even I'm seeing post-Series A companies not doing it.
Yeah. Awesome. So we have a poll. We just threw it up there. Have you been impacted negatively by an update? And this can be for any reasons. But really, we're thinking about from August to December, or August through now, frankly, because these are the ones that we're kind of touching on. Really trying to get a sense of, is this something that specifically people paying for? That's funny that you mentioned, Matt. I did not know that study. And I'm actually quite excited and surprised that I agree with something that Matt says. That's great. That's awesome. I'm going to actually have to reach out to him and talk to him, because that actually is what my research shows too, is that it gets into a little bit more detail. But if you had a site that was only focused on one intent type, or even more specifically, one type of content in a formulaic way, and that was the only, and it connects to couldn't connect to funnel, you got in trouble big time. And I have piles of examples. I unfortunately will not name sites on this particular broadcast. We do sometimes in the Content Strategy Collective, the Slack community. When somebody asks for our evaluation, we'll do some free audits and live audits in there. But yes, absolutely. If you had a site that only did one thing, and then you couldn't back it up and say you were an expert. I mean, the example I use, which is actually interesting that Matt said that, but the example I use is, if you've got a site that only covers bottom of funnel, why do you deserve to perform well for there? Where's the rest of the content that tells the story that you actually are the expert? And then again, when people start to look at, they like to emulate their heroes, right? They look at, Amazon and look at NerdWallet and try to do what they do. Don't do that, folks. It hurts worse than it helps. Don't do it. It's because they're performing black hat SEO on the reg.
They can get away with it.
They can get away with it, right? They're getting away with it. And they're large enterprise. Don't copy the large publishers. Don't copy large enterprise. I've seen a very prominent SEO lead for a major publisher frequently writes, please don't copy what we do, right? And it's like, you dare. Like, and when you see a 1, 2, 3, and it's monster entity, monster entity, monster entity, and you try to smush together those pages and build your own, you're in trouble. I mean, you're dead. I mean, that is what we see. And December made that so prominent. What people got killed for that. And that was one where you got to be yourself. You got to really cover this. If you want to rank for a definition, what is X, you better have the rest of the funnel covered, or else you don't have a chance at that definition, unless you go out and write 4,000 definitions. And those are really good, well-researched, and that's who you are. Then you're not about the whole topic funnel. You're about being a definition site. That's the part that everybody's brain explodes on that one, right? Because it's you didn't cover the whole funnel. You're not supporting the purchase journey. You're supporting a different intent. That's completely different than thinking that just because definitions are ranking, you can go write a great definition and rank. And that's what really, really, really the big underlying challenge that happened with the update you're talking about, and then also in the financial services world in general when you see things like that. So when you're thinking about Google updates, but also in response to during all of your time, how has it changed with in-house teams? How have people have they changed the way that they think they're going to generate leads here? Have they gone more top of funnel? Do they really get it, or is it really just keyword chasing?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it just depends organization to organization. I'm not sure that when I was working 4 years ago, I had as good of a 10,000 foot view as I do now. But I definitely think people are in the financial industry are investing more in content and starting to get that you have to have a holistic content approach. And not only just, you and I have these sophisticated understandings of it's important to cover lots of different topics. And I'd say most people doing content don't have that understanding. They just know if I want to look legit, I've got to have some good meaty content that shows people I know what I'm talking about. And if you take that line of reasoning to the 10,000th degree, that's really what we're doing here. We just have a system behind it, right? So it's all right, everybody wants to rank for that, what I call money keyword, that low bottom of funnel keyword, credit cards. I want to rank nationally #1 for credit cards. Everyone has like some kind of a keyword like that, 401k providers or whatever it is. And that's hard to do nationally. Locally, very doable, but nationally, very hard. But if you have those money terms that you want to rank for, great. We all have them. Know what it is, have a solid plan. And then what I do is, MarketMuse is an invaluable tool for this. I use your tool in conjunction with other things that I see on Google to flesh out, okay, what are all these related topics? We're going to create a topic cluster, have everything linked together. And when I have a head term, a low funnel head term I want to rank for, I'm fanatical with the internal linking. Every related article that I'm writing links back to that page that we're trying to rank for. So I start with the money keywords, flesh out the middle and top of funnel content that goes around it, and boom, we've got our content strategy. Great for users, great for Google. And I think, going back to your question, I think people are starting to get that because it's not quick. It takes time. It takes an investment. But if you really stick to a consistent publishing schedule for 12 months, you're going to explode your search engine traffic and pick up a lot of business along the way.
No, I think that's a perfect example. And I'd be interested in your take on, like, the way I always like to talk about it is what to really achieve on something that bold, right? The credit card side is, what would it mean to have the content inventory? What would it mean to actually have published the pool of content that would represent someone who actually was the most authoritative expert on that concept? Like, how big and robust is that? And are you willing to make that investment? I think that's really the question that everyone needs to ask. How frequently do you see people who are punching a little bit higher than their britches will allow, for my mixed metaphor?
Yeah, it happens all the time. But here's the good news, Jeff. Here's the good news. Yes, you need to write more content than you did before, but content is increasingly becoming more important than links, in my opinion. Because I'm seeing websites that maybe don't have the best domain authority or domain rating link-wise, but they're just doing a great job on the content, hitting all the right keywords, writing in depth, great for Google, great for users, and scaling the content and still ranking for competitive keywords. So I think topical authority is, in my opinion, is probably more important than domain authority, and that will enable you to punch above your weight. And along the way, you get lots of great little keyword wins that aren't as competitive, and that can still do wonders for your business.
Yeah, I mean, that is absolutely. They are the days of evaluating difficulty solely with off-page are gone. And really, I mean, we're the only people who have put that into software, but it's the fact is people are still using those data points only. And you can exploit that. It's a completely exploitable situation when someone is evaluating difficulty only with off-page or domain strength, because they're writing content that can't perform because they don't have any topic authority on it, and they're just writing it because they think that they're using what they call the old version of off-page cohorting. So I'm a 62. The average in the SERP is a 62. Thus, I can rank. It doesn't actually hold water. You might as well roll dice. It doesn't work. I mean, it's kind of silly. It works sometimes, but so does anything. I mean, are you truly building predictable content?
Actually, can I do a really quick case study before we move on?
Sure. Yeah, please. One question
on my mind.
A couple questions before you do.
Okay.
Yes, Lane and a few others. Recording will be available. Don't sweat it. We will get it to you. And thank you for joining us, bud. So tell your story, and then we'll back through some great questions that have come in.
So you asked about the credit cards example. I actually was able to rank nav.com #1 for business credit cards last year, when it wasn't even in the first page before that. And I think we weren't even on page 2 either. I was able to outrank creditcards.com, NerdWallet, and all those other guys that are huge in that space. And when I did a straight analysis, and ever since, even though I've left doing SEO for them, ever since I've left, they're consistently in the top 4 positions. So how did I do it? So what I've noticed is that, if you go on to, for example, Ahrefs, and you say, all right, average top 3 positions have 100 links for this keyword. We get 100 links to our page, we'll rank. Well, that's not how it works anymore. It's not that simple. I thought that I literally needed 100 links when I did that analysis. Turns out I only needed 25. High quality links from topically relevant websites, real websites with real organic search traffic. And I was shocked by that. And it's because we had already fleshed out this huge section on credit cards and credit. Google saw that topical authority, did a great job with internal linking, and we were rewarded. And the investment in links was far less than it needed to be. And so again, that's a really interesting case study where if you do the hard work on the content side, which is, in my opinion, is a lot more fun than link building, you need a lot less links.
Well, but it's also, so imagine, because of situations like that, those data points in isolation, the off-page only, we account for off-page in our metric, right? But it also includes evaluation of the content breadth and depth and quality and consistency. Do you have any thin content in our, when we're going through this? But imagine if something's that unpredictable, why would you use it as something to predict? It just isn't. The error is too great. It's okay to just get an eyeball. The same thing with the search volume. It's a relative eyeball. It's not actually delivering. We saw it today. Google published a huge mind blower into the world that said, how many of their searches are 0-click. Well, you're really going to use search volume when such a high percentage of searches are 0-click.
I saw that was insane.
Good luck with that. Again, you might as well roll dice if you're going to use metrics like that as your guiding light or your North Star, as my buddy John Henry Shirk called it. He said, if you're using search volume as your North Star, good luck with that. But that's
can I just pause really fast for listeners that don't know what you're talking about? I believe you're referencing the new study that Rand Fishkin did at SparkToro, where
it was that, but also Google published some data as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, today. Yeah, yeah. So both of them, but yeah, go check that out. Go check the Rand one out, and then also the Google published 0-click post today. So
I'll have to check that out. Rand's study, for those who weren't able to see, using similar web data, found that 76% of searches on mobile on Google, so mobile Google searches, resulted in no click. Insane. It's just going up. The no click searches are going up so high.
It's shocking. And it's for specific types of intent. But it also tells the story of what favored intent truly is, which we'll get to. That's totally off topic, but what favored intent truly is and how that relates to real, true intent and why you have to separate the two when you're writing content. It's that same reason that what is versus, but we'll get into that. Okay, so we talked about clusters, and I'm interested if you've seen this in the financial side, is demand gen or lead gen, or close the deal type sites where they're actually doing the loan processing of some sort, or other types of lead gen. Those teams are typically very powerful and they carry a lot of money, right? And they tend to influence the content team's decisions. And sometimes it gets even crazy. Have you seen that happen? And, situations where you build that pillar and then they want to do landing pages as support instead of having a parlay of great content and also appropriate landing pages? Do you see that? Because we see it in every single financial services company that's a customer. Everyone. They always have the same problem.
I've definitely seen it a lot. And I've been a part of those conversations where they're like, yeah, let's throw up a 100 word landing page with a huge, buy now button, and we're going to rank, right? And it's like, no, that is not going to work. Yeah. And what's really interesting is even for bottom of funnel buyer intent keywords, I'm seeing a lot of, I use the MarketMuse tool to see how much word count the competitors have. And what I'm seeing is a lot of them will have at least 500 words and sometimes 1,000 words for low funnel content. And so what we do is we have a really great CRO, great conversion strategy for the above the fold experience. Mm-hmm. Buy now, this is why, social proof, everything like that. But below, relevant content answering people's questions, and you need that to rank. And if you just don't go with the rest of the content and only go with the buyer part, oh my gosh, you get wiped out. You will not get any traffic.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a situation where a team, the demand gen team won, and they flashed. So flashing is when you have content on a page and then you actually change it completely to something else that changes the intent or the concepts covered on the page. It is if done not elegantly, it's a disastrous thing. If you do it, if you orchestrate it perfectly and you make sure that you still have the whole funnel covered. I'll give you another example, which is relevant to something you said. But completely flashed out the content for landing page lead gen, and it was informational. And when you do that, just watch the clock and just wait for things to drop. I mean, because it's that devastating, and it happens a lot in financial services content. You got to plan ahead. You've got to plan ahead if you're writing things that are temporal. You said prices, right? If you have a loan prices core page, right, and you're changing that content a lot, and you're changing a lot of it, you've got to plan ahead. What are you doing with the archived content? What are you doing with today's rates? What are you doing with your rate history? You've got to think through that before you start publishing. Because if you're just updating the content and then garbage on the old, you're causing problems too. And you don't even know that you're causing problems for yourself. If you just have today's rates and you have no other rate information, you're missing out on a huge possibilities. And a lot of times that's driven by the demand gen team. So that's great. Okay, let's answer a few questions before we get into it. I love these questions that are coming in. Tracy asks, do you recommend a minimum or maximum amount of internal links in any article? I've got a good answer for that. What's yours?
Yeah, so this old school advice that I see to be still circulating is like no more than 200 links on a page. Mm-hmm. And that's probably a good rule of thumb. It's insanely high. I would say, because if you have, let's say you're doing a really wide topic cluster, like let's say you have, this is something that we did a lot when I was at the big agency. Like we did thousands of pages where we ranked one page for each, like local city keyword, right? Like, Houston business internet, or Houston, stockbroker, something like that. And you have one page for every city. What we would do is we would link to all the local cities in that geography, and then we would have this automatic linking thing, and that worked really well. But we didn't link to every city in the whole country from every page. So I'd say if you look at the relevance, let that be your guide. And yeah, probably no more than 200, but maybe you have a better number, Jeff.
So it depends. It's just like it's the search engine optimization, diapers. It depends, right? No, but it's totally relevant to what content you have that is already relevant on closely semantically related concepts, right? That answers your question. And how many of those can you weave into this specific page that makes sense? Right. So it will typically not be a very large number because it's just not going to fit. Right. So you may have, elegant ways of interweaving or interweaving those things together. So I wouldn't do a hard and fast, but I would say you need externals. If you don't know that you need hard externals on your site, you're in trouble. Right. That's another topic. And those should not be explicitly semantically related concepts, because that tells the story that there's a better resource for the thing that you're writing about. You want adjacently relevant topics. So if you're writing about credit cards, you may not be about loan amortization, but there might be a better reference somewhere else about that. It's semantically adjacent, and then that's a good external. If you have a site that has no externals, it's a terribly bad signal. If you have a site that has only externals to other sites you own, that's a terribly bad signal, right? And if you have way too many internals or link lists that aren't natural, it's a really bad signal as well. So that should, but the key is all the pages you have that are semantically related should be referenced there. And pro tip, don't forget, you publish something new, go back to your old content that is semantically related and make sure you point to the new good page that you just spent all that money on, or else you're not putting its best foot forward. So no, those are great question. I love that question.
Jeff, can I just drop a really quick hint, a very actionable tip? And Tracy, you're going to like this. So this is working really, really well right now. And so I'm trying to scale this strategy. You don't have to have very many internal links if they're topically relevant. Use exact match anchor text. Works so well. So what I've been doing is creating a series of articles. This is kind of like an old school blog strategy that if you marry it with SEO and content authority, topical authority, works really well. So create a series, find topics that are very closely related, but not the same thing, right? They have their own search intent, and then link to each, and then have them link to each other with that exact match internal link anchor text. Do 5 to 10. You don't need more than that. Right. And then at the top of the page, put, this is our second installment in our series on X. At the bottom of the page, check out the other articles that we've written. And I'm getting fantastic results with this technique because A, what Jeff said, topical, very tight topical authority, and they're all linking to each other. B, user interaction signals. It keeps people reading, and they just keep reading and reading and reading. And Google says, wow, people are not bouncing off of this page. Let's boost them up higher in the search results.
Yeah, I mean, we could rabbit hole on that. Is an awesome topic, by the way. That's a great. I mean, it is. It's about if you have a page that's not naturally a showcase, right? It's not showcasing all the stuff you got. Some examples of that: category pages, quote pages. If you're in financial services, something that's persona driven. Hey, this is a page for all students at this particular college, right? That's a great place to think about them. Think about who the user is and what pages they might like to read as part of their journey, and represent that as somewhat of a showcase. Here's all the stuff we've got. So often people in category pages in e-commerce or affiliate, for example, they're like, I'm not putting content or links on my category pages. Why? They're not allowed to go through the buyer journey. You think that they're just going to land there and buy immediately? You have no idea what's going on. You need them to feel comfortable that you actually know the buyer journey. And that works just like in financial services. Show them you got all this stuff. They actually can increase your conversion rates over time. Maybe not the conversion rate explicit, but lead quality is what it is. And I'll leave it there. But that's a long time lead gen trick. I've generated a few million leads in my day. That's a great one. I love that topic. Okay, how many external links per page? If I'm doing a business analysis, does linking to McKinsey articles increase my topical authority and trustworthiness? Google Scholar articles? Good question. What do you think?
If I'm doing... So I'm gonna be honest, I don't have much experience. I don't have really any experience with like trying to rank Google Scholar articles. So I'm not sure I can speak to that. But with regard to McKinsey, because they've really been, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm starting to see them in some of the SERPs I compete in, and it's like, wow, they've really invested in their content over the past few years, and they're building up a really nice website there. And I don't know if they're abusing, but I just see them a lot. And I'd say look for the good like seed websites in your particular sub-niche. What are those? And do they have relevant data? Worry about linking to those as opposed to like Wikipedia or McKinsey. So I'd say focus on the data and the topical and content authority more than maybe some of the other factors.
Yeah, I mean, I like the two tips I'd give is it's not really how many, again, but it's really don't go crazy. But make sure that the topics you're linking to, you've elegantly woven into your prose or your content, and they're adjacently relevant. They're not competitive. And if they're adjacently relevant, try to stop the user journey at the place you point them. So if that's my rule of thumb. So if I'm going and, I'm trying to link to a really great answer to a question that I'm not going to do on my site for one reason or another, try to make sure that the page they land on, they are satisfied with it. It's not one that's like starting their journey, and you'll have a better path to success. Also, try not to link externally to things that are completely semantically unrelated or have no business having that link. Tremendously huge negative signal. External linking is one of the most difficult things to do right. And it can absolutely influence the performance of your pages. It absolutely does for so many reasons. And we can have a whole webinar on that. But think about that. Don't link to something semantically unrelated. It's actually a really interesting thing. And I'd be interested, Garit, in your experience with financial services is we reference it sometimes as writing semantically unrelated content or topic creep or thin content creep. Where you have content that is low quality or it's about completely semantically unrelated things on your site, how that can influence a your money or your life site more than a non your money or your life site. Is that something that you've encountered or?
Yeah, I think because you're your money or your life,
right,
you're more on Google's radar for algorithm updates than you would be if you were a dog grooming site or something. That's not your money or life. So yeah, extra scrutiny because of that. And then, it's kind of funny because sometimes I see these untopically related articles ranking. Like, for example, when we were getting business.org running, we bought that domain and we took another site that we had previously written with some good age content and redirected it over. And when we were planning that migration, so I don't know who greenlighted this, but we had articles like, this is a B2B website, right? We had articles like Taco Bell versus McDonald's and how to clean your room. And I'm like, what? And we X'd that. And sometimes you'll see these completely off-topic articles rank. But as Google gets more sophisticated with understanding different topics and natural language processing, you will get hit. You will either A, get hit with a topical, like a Google algorithm update, or that content is just gonna fall, not give you traffic anymore. And when we're looking at content ROI, I should add, why do you want to rank about stuff that has nothing to do with what you talk about? This is one of my worst pet peeves. I see on B2B websites, just because something has to do with business doesn't mean you should be talking about it. Okay? You're not Forbes, you're not Fortune. Stay topically relevant. It'll actually give you a better ROI for your content anyway, and you'll be safe. You'll be safe from algorithm updates.
Absolutely. And authoritativeness is calculated at the topic level, folks. Topic level. Okay, I'll leave it there. We can get real deep, but it's at the topic level. I've seen this. The humorous one I saw one time in this space was a site that their money was in quotes. I won't say which type of quotes. But someone along the way told them that they should do their keyword research and look at variants, probably from Google AdWords Keyword Planner, and descend by search volume, write articles for each one. It's the old SEO joke. It's the easiest thing to blow up. It's the easiest thing to blast if a competitor is using Google AdWords Keyword Planner. Everyone should know that. But yeah, they had movie quotes. Love seeing quotes, and then up against their financial quotes. Okay, first of all, 2 reasons why that's a disaster. One, completely semantically unrelated. You're the type of site that's getting hit by updates. 2, it's a competitive disaster because if I'm your competitor, I'm going to point links to those semantically unrelated pages. And then what happens? You become less about the thing you care about and more about the things that you don't care about. And that is a disaster. So if you've got content that's ranking a lot, lots of traffic, and it's the stuff that you shouldn't be, you got to figure out a way to do a migration. And in financial and your money or your life, it's even more the case. So I love that example. You said it. You said, Taco Bell versus McDonald's. By the way, hopefully neither. Maybe in a pinch for some fries, maybe. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and sometimes they're like, they watch the YouTube videos and they got that one kid. He's like sponsored by Happy Meals, I think. I don't know. But okay, so we got another one. How do you decide the mix between video and text content on your site?
Oh yeah,
great question.
So
and
first
that's
off,
Gaurav. Thanks, buddy. That's a great question.
Yeah, Gaurav, great question. And this is something I've been noodling on because for my own, I actually have about 30 videos of content I have in my backlog to produce, but I don't just want to throw them off my website with nothing. So, so I mean, you could have a video on every piece of content, and I would actually think that would be really cool if more people did that. That's fine. But just know that Google is so weak at rating and understanding video content. They're trying to get better, but it's still very much in its infancy that it just doesn't give anywhere the weight that does to text. So I'd say if you're putting up a video on your website and you want that page to rank in the Google algorithm, you've got to have great written content. And a website that I love that does this really well is Siege Media. They're a SEO content marketing agency, and they do great high quality videos. But then they won't just take the raw transcript. What they'll do is they'll repurpose it. They'll repackage it into a really nice way so that it's a readable article. That's how you do it right. And again, we're assuming that it's topically relevant content. If you're talking about some other random thing on your video, please don't repurpose it. But if it's topically relevant, repurpose it, and you'll have success. You'll have moderate success with that strategy. And it's kind of a low resource intensive way to get more content if you have more written content if you have that video content already.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about this in a couple other webinars, but on rich media optimization, go check those out. Or if you ever want to have a conversation about it. But there's different levels of optimizing that rich media. And there's another question about I have and I'm going to double answer. I have written a book about personal finances. How do I get this into a great content strategy? And they're kind of a tandem question because it's about turning that corpus of content, that entity you have. In this case, it's our webinar recording, right? In your case, you have a book. It's behind a reg wall, or you want them to buy it, right? How do you take the insights gleaned from that and make them repackaged and repurposed for various audiences? I mean, this would be a sexy webinar recording for someone who's thinking about YMYL and Google quality rater guidelines. It would also be good for a financial services only specific person. It would also be good for someone who's writing about cryptocurrency. Oh gosh, they need quality content in cryptocurrency. It's one of the thinnest areas on the web, right? And so we can repackage this transcript for every audience, for every angle, for every value that we bring, and provide a tidbit of that information or one piece of information gain. So you got to take that same approach with your book. How many of those pages could turn into something valuable? I once turned a book into almost 1,000 page website, one book. The book was only 200 pages long, right? So think about that, and that can be your guide. So please, if you've written a personal finance blog, find a really good person that's in content strategy, or take that advice and think about how many different ways. Siege Media, great reference. Annotating your transcripts and pointing to stuff that's relevant, not just show notes. Oh boy, instant wins. You can get them all day. And maybe we missed a spot. Maybe we forgot about something just in the natural discourse of our discussion. When Garit said this, something that he also was thinking about was this, or editor's commentary. If you're going to really think about quality rater guidelines, here's the link. And here's our other article about the QRG, right? Think about how to annotate that to provide a really great user experience. And then also think about, I can create 100 landing pages for this webinar. If you're just doing one landing page, one book, you're not doing it. The hardest part about repurposing is actually doing it and being hard on yourself to actually do the work. Do the work. It is worthwhile. You just got to think about how much can you get done and how much time you have. I mean, it's great. That's an awesome question. So that answer.
Can I just say I love your answer, Jeff, and I got to say this is brilliant because I'm thinking web first. So I'm thinking eventually at some point I'm going to want to repurpose my blog web content into a print book.
Yep.
But this is brilliant. And I honestly haven't thought about this before. How many people have books that haven't gotten it on the internet yet? Restructure, repurpose it. Every chapter is like a new topic cluster. Boom. You've got a huge website ready to go.
That used to be my side hustle, man.
This is brilliant, Jeff. I love that. I'm going to write you a check later on I got a new productized service now.
I did that as a side hustle, podcast optimization and book optimization for many, many years. So anyway, so awesome. Gaurav, how do you decide as much as you can get done in tandem and have it be complementary? It serves different purposes, but you have to serve different learners. Also different content types. Some people might want a checklist. Some people might want a screencast with slides. Think about all the different ways you can communicate this and how many do they connect to your persona to answer that question. All right. Would map and citations be just as important for consultants and or small teams? Jared.
Yes. Yes. It's important for everyone. Look, and this is actually kind of brings me full circle to something I wanted to mention earlier. So I have a client in the credit space, and I'll just keep it super broad like that. And we actually got them in just a few months from page 2 to position 2 or 3 now for their head term, 18,000 a month searches, low funnel, really great keyword.
No clicks. Not just kidding.
No clicks. No. And no, to be honest, the click-through rate's astonishingly low. But how we did that was they have such a great brand presence. So many people are looking them up on branded search. And that's another important factor, that now when we go up and just like post any content for them, they're ranking super fast because they've built up the topical authority, been very disciplined, great brand. And Google in the Google Knowledge Graph entity, Google Knowledge Graph, their entity of their company is closely associated with these terms we're trying to rank for. So it just works really well. So to bring it full circle, NAP, use schema markup, use citations, and build up your brand so that people are looking for you. If Google closely associates your brand with different topics, it will make ranking so much easier.
Oh, yeah. I mean, go watch the webinar I did with Jason Barnard. It's in the archive. It gives you the why on this. If you don't know the why, right? But yeah, Garit answered the question. I have nothing to add that would be valuable. Just go watch that and listen to what Garit said, and it will make your life a lot easier. Awesome question. All right. So top SEO from Ryan. Top SEO solutions to enhance the effectiveness of MarketMuse. I'm biased, but I use Ahrefs. I use Semrush. I use SERPstat. I use Screaming Frog. Absolutely. If you don't have a Screaming Frog solution. SimilarWeb, great partner of ours. It was mentioned before. Rand used it in that proposal. They're the only person with a stream that you can actually depend on still after the death of Avast. Google. Learn your advanced operators. If you don't know your advanced operators, it'll save your life. Go look up Google advanced operators. I mean, I can list out piles of tips, but yes, certainly, it depends on your target. But yeah, those are all solutions that you need to have in your arsenal. Trying to think of some more niche ones you might not know. But I'll let you go, Garit, and then maybe I'll think of a few. So
yeah, I second everything that Jeff said. Those are great. One that I particularly like to use with MarketMuse when I'm fleshing out a copy brief or a content scope, as I like to call them, for a particular article, and actually for site-wide topical relevance too, is Keywords Everywhere. So they're dirt cheap Chrome extension. They used to be free, and then when they became paid, everyone stopped using them. So like surprisingly few people use them. And they take the Google related terms plus other terms directly from the Google API. And, you type in a topic, let's say, best, life insurance rates. And they'll show you what the search volume for all the related topics. And this is great because Google's telling you what it thinks users think are closely related. So it just told you what all the related terms are. So you combine that direct Google data with MarketMuse, it's a gold mine. It's a gold mine.
Yeah, I think another source is similar to that. It would be grep words, which you can get that information. So go sign up for an account. It's inexpensive. It's a wonderful resource to be able to do those types of workflows. A little bias there as well, but yeah. So that's that's what I would say. Some things that I would be thinking about also are, the mirror is a really great tool to use to get MarketMuse on. You got to know what you've covered. And Screaming Frog can help. MarketMuse's inventory solution. We have topical authority, personalized difficulty. It really answers how much content do you need to create? How much content do you need to update? Gives you a laser focus on what you need to update. But yes, looking externally, I haven't used everything, but I've used most things. But those are some really great ways to get started and be thinking about. One thing I say, please do not, don't cut your knees off by buying a cheaper product for, certain aspects of keyword research or just relying on Google AdWords Keyword Planner. That data is for paid. It's search volume, it's broad match, or broad match plus. It's, CPC data has no relevance to difficulty. It's an eyeball data point. Please don't trust your business to data that looks at, what Amazon's doing for SEO and tells you how to emulate them. I mean, don't do it. We see so many horror stories of people just using cheap things, and they usually end up talking to us because they damaged their brand. So just be thinking about that when you're going through tools and comparing them. Just because you can't tell the difference doesn't mean there isn't one. And that's really a big thing that I deal with every day. It's people like, this list of keywords sort descend out of Google AdWords Keyword Planner kind of looks the same as what's in MarketMuse. I'm like, yeah, it might look the same, but trust me, it's not. And you really have to be thinking about, if this is an affiliate site you can throw away if it crashes, okay, go crazy. But if it's not, if you're an in-house, and you trust your brand to something that is, copying what NerdWallet's doing. It's just what we see all the time. All right, cool. Well, these are awesome.
Can I speak to that really briefly?
Yeah, for sure.
What I like to use MarketMuse for is, you look at the list of topics in their topical modeling process, and it's actually very good, even from a human standpoint, because one of the tricks. So when keyword research basics is, and I think you kind of indirectly referenced this, Jeff, is you'll go to a NerdWallet. They're even too big to be like a NerdWallet site section or something. You go to competitors and you'll see what they're ranking for, and then you go, oh, well, I can rank for all these keywords, and that's a great place to start, right? But that's just where you start. You move beyond that. And what I love to do is interview a subject matter expert. Just talk. Tell me the jargon. Tell me all the stuff that I don't know. And I love niching down into finance because I'm actually finding that I'm not niched down at all, because it's like tax jargon compared to investing jargon. It's completely different, right? And then you'll go into MarketMuse and you'll see, and I'll find out a lot of those related topics that they suggest are actually things that a subject matter expert said. I just didn't know. And so if you don't have access to a subject matter expert, MarketMuse is your shortcut to doing that. And also a subject matter expert isn't going to tell you, stuff that'll help you rank, and MarketMuse gives you that too. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a great one. One additional point of clarification question came in: PDFs, Excel templates, etc. Same concept as rich media. You don't want your PDFs ranking in search if you can't track them, and they have Excel files, doc files, specialty extension files have a disadvantage in organic search. So you always want to represent them with content as much as you can, or repurposed content. But that was a great follow-up question. Great. Well, so financial services in general, give us your sign off and I'll let you have the last word and then we'll get going. We're a little bit over time. So,
yeah, I'd say one of the things that I'm seeing a really common mistake of people that are even creating a lot of content is they're not writing meaty, in-depth content. So the strategy of writing 500-word articles 10 times a week just doesn't work anymore. So at the macro level, instead, what we want to do is approach it strategically, approach keywords that have search volumes and clicks, write for topics. I should say top closely related. When I say keywords, really what I mean is closely related topics.
Yeah.
1 page per topic. People are looking it up. Do so strategically. Have them linked together. Nice, meaty, 1,000, 2,000, maybe more word articles. Do that. Scale that instead of this other approach. You're going to win. There's always tricks to the trade to be better at it, but just do that basics and you're going to win.
Yeah, I mean, don't let anybody tell you you shouldn't write something because there's no search volume. You're writing something so that it makes it comprehensive, makes it robust, answers the question that a user that you would like to have would answer. So awesome, Garrett. This has been like the most fun conversation. Thank you so much. If someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that? And anything else you want to add? So.
GaritBoothe.com is my website. GaritBoothe. Gotta love that weird spelling. GaritBoothe.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. Love to connect with you there.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Please, by the way, reach out to Garrett. He knows this stuff. If you don't know that from listening to I've known him for a really long time. Really gets stuff done. He's super smart. We also have any webinar person that gets to this deep into the call. First of all, high five. Second of all, webinar 15 if you're not already a customer on any of our self-service offerings. We've also got some very exciting things rolling out in April and May to keep an eye on if you are in April and May listening to this as a replay. All right. Well, thank you again, Garrett. It's been a pleasure, and thanks everybody for joining. Cheers.